Hello, beautiful of people of and welcome to ID Garden. We don't really know what we're doing, but we're doing it anyway. So today we're gonna do a round, like what's life for us, whatever crap is coming out of our head. It's okay. Ed?
Okay. I like that you make me start because then I have no time to think what I'm going to say. Yeah, all sorts of stuff. I think I would like to be, and I think to some degree I'm one of the people who is quite good at helping conversations along. And I'm also one of those people who's got a hell of a lot of eccentric ideas of their own, and that doesn't necessarily work well with helping conversation along. So I have to balance those things. I've just been on another call with Attentional Society people, which was a completely free flowing conversation. There wasn't even a check-in or we made sure that everyone spoke out of 7 people, I think, but that was done without anybody facilitating it. And all sorts of stuff goes on in my head because I'm just retired and got nothing better to do. I am writing stuff, history stuff, and researching it, and but also I'm just listening to YouTube videos and
Yeah. What's interesting in the YouTube video?
I mean, I listened the last, I mean, I can't remember if it was the last one even, but the one that sticks in my head most recently was listening to Jordan Peterson talking to Rob Henderson about sex and dating apps. And then, you know, I'm a sort of leftish person, and they're quite right wing, but I still find it quite stimulating. And also another one, Dr. Patrick Moore, it was one of the guys who founded Greenpeace, but he's pretty anti all the climate crisis stuff now. So it's again it's not where I naturally agree with, but he's an interesting guy to listen to. So yeah, I complete, and those are just 2 bits, you know. I listen to all sorts of stuff, political and other.
Okay.
I pick it out to see, oh, no, that's too boring. I've heard enough of that lately. So I look for some other video that will bring me along. Yeah, anyway, shall I pass it on to somebody, or do you want to?
Yeah, pick someone.
Okay, Helena.
Well, I'm kind of on the same line, I think, wavelength with you, Ed, in certain ways. That, I mean, I feel that I'm sort of an eccentric, and I don't kind of fit in to sort of the mindset that I find a lot of my friends have on various topics. And so I try to navigate whether I just shut up, you know, and just not say anything and just kind of, you know, or do I actually talk about what I'm, you know, what I'm really feeling. I mean, I'm always want to be true to myself. So it's either not saying anything, but then if somebody asks me what my point of view is, then I feel like I have to say it. You know, I'm not going to just lie. But sort of feeling somehow sort of not a misfit, but kind of in my own world, and in some ways proud about it, and in other ways feeling a little vulnerable. So I guess that's all I have to say.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Who do you pass the ball?
I'm passing it to Justin.
All right, so Justin, welcome. You know, I think it's your first time here. And maybe you could give us a bit of background about yourself, because we all know each other, just in case.
Yeah. Let's see. So I'm fairly new to Rebel Wisdom. I've kind of heard them here and there for a year or two, but especially with the Consilience project ramping up, I've gotten more.
So Justin, is it possible, you know, like your volume is very low, maybe in your settings, you know, you can crank the volume up, because it's...
Sorry about this. Is that better?
I don't know, but it's okay. It's okay, it's no big deal if you can't, but just in case. Clay, maybe you can go while Justin's trying to adjust his audio.
Oh, I can go. That's great.
Yes.
Let me just be someplace stationary for a moment. I don't usually be on the move on a call, but oftentimes I'll avoid taking care of myself to be on a call stationary. So I'm taking care of myself. I'm getting my pills together and something to drink. What's the question again? Who am I?
Who are you and what's life for you?
I'm Clay from San Francisco. It says that already in my nameplate. I've been on a call with an old friend who lives in Haiti. Haiti is a weird place to be now. And I guess just crossing over from that and realizing I need to take some pills, it's got me a little bit dazed and confused. But I'm looking forward to talking about the garden of ideas, doing some weeding, what's interesting in my life, what's interesting in yours.
Someone put you on some pills.
Oh, I take a lot of pills. I'm a medical success. And then I'm alive, and I have an A1C number of 5.5. Yeah, which is significant because it was 11, not 8 months ago. So I know I want to say something interesting, and so when you're trying to say something interesting, that's when the most stupidest stuff comes out. And I'm getting a delivery. So
okay.
Busy here in San Francisco this morning. That's all right, because I'm on the move and I can get the door. So what's interesting? Well, we were on a call the other day, and the subject of shame and what causes us to feel shame in our self-criticisms. Thank you. They're just right out here. You get the whole tour of my house today. I got a package. So yeah, shame. And you know, it's interesting. So just to report, in case you all weren't at that, is that I didn't think I had any. I thought I had done all the work that I needed to do to not feel shame. But it comes up. Shame comes up. And you least expect it. Like, okay, I'm not going to give an example of shame yet, but it's an interesting topic that everyone can relate to, even if you've done a lot of work. So for me, it like starts off conceptual, like, oh yeah, shame. I remember, like, you know, being ashamed of being accused of lying, things like that, when I wasn't. But I've also been ashamed when I was like, I have a lot of food on my buffet plate at the party. I should be embarrassed. Hold that thought. I just wanted to get present because I've been moving. So the thing that I realized during the exercise about like look into your self-criticisms last time, which was on Wednesday, yesterday, really, is that so I think I have an eating disorder because I can never understand nutrition. And I feel like I should know by now because I'm like 60 years old. Shouldn't I know like how to eat by now? But I just suck at it. And I continue to suck at it. It doesn't matter if I eat a lot or if I don't eat anything. It's still like nutrition. How do you do it? Because I'm smart in other areas. But this is just like there's too much information. I don't get it. So yeah, you need to eat a lot of vitamins, minerals, green things, apparently. I don't know. I'm not looking for answers. Don't need advice. I'm suffering from advice. I should already know. I'm ashamed. I'll leave it at that. And thank you all for your listening. And I want to hear about the Consilience project. So if you can get your mic to work really good, that'd be awesome.
Sure. Is that any better? Not really.
It's low volume, but if you speak up, it'll be fine.
Yeah. So the Consilience project, let's see. So well, so you guys are kind of familiar with like the basics of it, or do you want me to start from zero? Or
Since it's kind of my question, I would say like you brought up the Consilience project, and that's how you got into Rebel Wisdom, which for anyone else would have been completely the other way around. So what it did for me is it dropped into my listening. It's like, oh my God, you're like a Daniel Schmachtenberger level player. And you're here. What's that about?
well,
So it can still be about you.
Okay. So, well, my thought process with the whole thing is that, I mean, we all kind of understand that we are. Boy, wow, it is really quiet, and
I can hear.
okay, good. So we all kind of understand to one degree or another that we're in a really bad spot. Things are not going well in the USA, but like in the world too. So like I'm super involved, like trying to like always thinking about trying to be accountable, trying to make things happen, trying to what's the saying, like you know, if you want something, go get it. Those that type of thing, like if there are problems in the world, somebody's got to work on them. And not that I'm anybody in particular, but for whatever reason, I cannot not think like a lot of people, I think, sort of have an option to just kind of focus on their day-to-day life, or if they want to, if they have time to focus on these existential crises. Not me. And I think that really just stemmed from, as a kid, just being very observant. And so that's kind of bled into like it's hard for me to not notice tie things back together. And my family hates me for this because we'll just be like out doing something and something will happen and I'll be like, oh, you see, this is how that's all connected to like let me try to give an example. Well, I just kind of like connect the dots on a big picture, I guess. And so it's hard for me, even if I try to distract myself and not think about big picture and existential crises, wherever I shift my attention to, I usually kind of like circle back around to how it's connected to. So it's a yeah, and that's just because like I'm very observant. I don't think I'm particularly smart or anything like that, but um so fast forward to answer your question about the Consilience Project. My line of thought was we all kind of understand that we're getting screwed, that things are pretty bad, something along those lines. If people could have a moment of clarity, like if they could see vividly um, how bad that is, we'd have change within a week, months at the most. Um, so, and so that was kind of my thought process. It's like nobody can explain to me why, like what the limiting factor on that would be. Um, because like I mean that's very challenging to organize 100 million people or whatever, but at the same time the context is that we're all suffering for largely the same reasons. And if so, and that was kind of my thought process. The only people that I've come across that have been able to like sufficiently answer that for me is like the Consilience Project, saying that one of the barriers to everybody just kind of having a moment of clarity to how bad things are, which I think is really kind of what is preventing, I don't know, to me, in my mind, it was just that simple. And nobody could explain to me what the barriers to that were until the Consilience Project. Um, which, you know, basically says, yeah, we can't all really, it's very difficult to get everybody to realize like how bad things are because of the epistemic comments. And so I've listened to Daniel Schmachtenberger quite a bit and some of the other people. And so it's like, oh, okay, that's like a sufficient, that's a rigorous answer of, I'm still not convinced that this has got to take years. I think it could take months. Um, I'm looking strictly at like the limiting factors, and I cannot identify anything that, you know, says this must be more than a year or two. Now, I did hear Daniel Schmachtenberger talk on a podcast about how basically like for the next year at least we're screwed, like things around. So anyway, I'm kind of being long-winded. Um, yeah, so that's how I came into the Consilience Project, and then seeing how involved David Fuller is with that and how sense making is central to Rebel Wisdom. I was like, oh, okay, this is a because I'm always looking for people that kind of like that Helena, that are kind of in their own world and focused on these type of things. Um, most people aren't, just because like it's they have their lives to live and they really just don't have the bandwidth for, I mean they do, but they also have like a family and a job and other things eat up their time and energy. anyway, very long answers. Questions that I missed or
So how bad things really are? You know, it's really difficult to define, to say, and how do we judge what's good and what's bad? Seems like the good things, bad things. So maybe we could have a quick round and let's try to be mindful of each other's time. You know, if we don't have something to say, pass the ball. Don't know what to say, pass the ball. So who would like to start? You know, just we're just 5, so we don't need to really let's listen to each other. And who has an opinion on, let's start with a bit less doomsday focus and more of like what's good, you know, what's good in the things that are happening nowadays.
Yeah, we're live. I think people are thinking for themselves more, even if it leads them to extraordinary belief systems and so on. And they're not actually, they're just maybe not thinking, they're accepting someone else's idea, but they're still trying to think for themselves. So there's a general trend of people being interested in these issues, which is not just politics, but all sorts of things, religion, spirituality. I think people in general, right across the spectrum, are much more interested in all this stuff now. And I also think I accept the ideas of people, of the rational optimists like Steven Pinker, that in general, at least up till now, things like war and disease, etc., famine, have been reducing. And if people think they're not reducing, that's because we're getting more and more aware of the suffering of other people. But so it is quite possible that while things are getting better, we are beginning to realize more just how bad they were. So then it looks like things are getting worse. Okay, that's my standpoint.
Right, thanks. Okay, me, I think what's getting better is access to information. And that seems benign, but I think every revolution starts in the mind. And I see more and more people being educated through, you know, like let's say Rebel Wisdom or Stoa, or, you know, all those micro communities. People start talking to each other again. And I think that's the beginning of like people conspiring. So it's just now we're trying to find in which way or direction is the whole thing gonna go. But because all the barriers of access of information have been gone, and in a way barriers of communication, and in a way people that have similar mindset wherever they are in the world, people like us that I would qualify as like early adopters, you know, we're like the curious fellows, we're the inquirers, maybe a bit intellectual, but a bit like nomadic in our minds, open-minded people. So in a way, we're kind of like the archetype of the revolutionaries, of early revolutionaries of the Enlightenment, both for the US and French, you know. But it's just maybe a different flavor, different time, different rules. So I see lots of good things with this. It's like people start listening to each other, create some wee space where people can heal together, and we realize everyone is pretty much fucked up, but it's okay, and it's it's going up, you know, like I see some bricks being put on, and in a way, being bitter about what happened is just people waking up. It's just part of the process. It's like, you know, like after you drink too much, then you have a period of like, okay, maybe I need to stop drinking that much. So it's like, I think people start, getting more aware. And so in the physical space, the economy, you know, the weather and stuff like this, it seems tumultuous, but you know, people's minds, some seeds are being planted that I think we will see it grow in the future. So that's it for me.
Anyone else see anything good?
Yeah, that seems really hard.
Well, I can kind of, so I a lot of times I get mistaken for being very pessimistic. I guess just for like one example, there's a lot of reason for optimism that I see in the Consilience project for sure, especially like as I've gone over that a lot and my eyes have been open to how inadequate I am personally to fixing those problems, but then seeing how effective and good, you know, that whole team is at that. It's like, wow, the problems are really serious, but then we're getting some really serious players to attack the roots. Me personally, I think there's a brighter future than most people can imagine, and I think it's only months away. Like I don't see any limiting factor why it couldn't be. So and there's so many cool things that humanity could do in the next 5 years. Just
like what?
As automation and culture and tourism and the economy, and there's so like I love thinking about all that stuff because humanity is just like operating at 1% right now. But yeah, and I think the road to getting there is also it's difficult because it's new and different, but it's also simple to a degree because I mean the root of it, like we all know, is sense making, and that the cultural renaissance that they talk about, and which is arguably simpler than inventing a new like technology. It's more straightforward, I guess. So there's endless reason for optimism, but I do get mistaken for a pessimist sometimes because I don't know. I don't quite understand that, but yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff that we could do. A lot of cool stuff coming on, for sure.
All right, you're probably taken out of context, so people will only report back from what they've just heard when you're not really finished saying what you have to say, because I get you as an optimistic person very much, but when you're laying out the, you know, sort of like, you know, here's the problem part, they're going like, why are you so pessimistic? Which is a funny face because I forgot to turn my face off. But I get the optimism, and I think other people, once they are asked, you know, maybe they're stuck in a shadowy space. If they're asking a new question like, well, what would you like to see happen in the future that has never happened before? Then it's like, oh, well, because then, you know, that's what our strongest inclination to do together is create. And when we can create something new together, because we're so, you know, excited by new, and, you know, we can see the problem with old, not old like, you know, old like a person, but like what happened already, we can say like, okay, well, it was fun, but you can't always live on a roller coaster, you know, you can't go to Disneyland every day either. Something's possible, and that's what's possible keeps us with an eye on, you know, like getting that to happen. So thank you for your optimism. Consilience project is sorting part of it out, I think. Thanks for being here. And bon travail, Maxwell.
Yeah, I think personally the sense making, instead of just being about explaining the situation, how bad it is and what it is, I think it's more like giving it a direction, you know, because in France we don't say makes sense. It's like, what, you know, what's the direction? And I think we don't have a direction is what we miss. And I think when all the intellectuals will have, let's say, I see maybe there's like two pyramids. There's a pyramid of like understanding the rules of reality, and it's like the smarter you are, like you try to clean the pyramid to have like a perspective on things, and like the higher you are, the further you can see. So it's like the more meta you become, like who can see the big picture. And so you have guys like Schmarkenberger who are super great at seeing big perspective, and that's great. But I think we need another pyramid, another visionary perspective of like, okay, so this is the old world, now what's the new? And here is a pyramid of imagination. We need magicians, you know, people who can who can see, you know, the big picture of what's happening in a way, to some degree, but more than that, have a big vision for what could be in the future, you know, like your angle towards the future is like, okay, what could it be? Because what I'm very frustrated is like, you know, what you say, Clay, is like people are so focused on their own little thing, but they haven't really developed their imaginary muscles. But because we live in a world where it's not like that, so I believe, you know, in a way, guys like you, you know, worked in marketing, advertising, or you know, creative people. This will be the next wave. That's like in a way, I think intellectual creativity. Because when you think of, you know, the great icons of the past, Plato, Socrates, and for me, my favorite is Diogenes. But those guys, they were all ideological explorers, innovators, right? But now there's very seldom ideological innovation, you know? It's rare that we'd see. Lots of it is recycling, is an echo chamber of stuff that's trying to be said in another way. It's like Jung said that, X said this, and then I add a little bit. So I will call it incremental innovation. But where is the disruptive innovation? You know, in my line of work, it's like, you know, you have a new smartphone, it's disruptive innovation because the context, you throw something like this, the context change everything. It changed everything. So what I'm looking at, me personally, is like, what's the next disruptive ideas? It's going to change the whole game, you know, like in a way communism did, or Adam Smith, capitalism did, or Rousseau did with social contract. You know, you have those ideas, you send them into the world, it's the whole ideological landscape, the whole noosphere that gets reconfigured. It's like, poof, reboot, new program. And now, in a way, it's like, how do you combine all those great ideas of the past, you know, in a way that's like, even in a way, I think it's going to be even bigger than anything that ever happened before, because now it's like all those ideas are starting to have sex. And in a way, the consilience project or whatnot is a convergence of all those ideas that have been diverging, for like centuries. It's like, I believe this, everyone has different perspective on the divine, but now it's like, oh, there's design patterns on the way that people think about God and all those things. And it seems like they converge. And what is the essence of all that convergence? So you remove all the noise, you keep the essence, and based on this essence, this core, this kernel, okay, great, remove the crap, then you cut in half, and then it's like a new tree of ideas, based off the best of the old world. That's the way I see it. But I think once we got this kernel of truth, let's say, that in a way is what we've been trying to achieve for centuries. Is the holy grail. It's like, what's the truth? But we can never quite achieve it. But I think if we analyze people's different perspectives, and eventually we combine it and simplify it, and I think the next process is the process of distillation, like we call in alchemy, like you distill, you strip everything that's not the essence, it's just distillation. So finding the essence, and based on that essence, what kind of new things will emerge. So I think what's missing in the sense-making space is simplification, is distillation to the core basic ideas, and then not focusing on like big neo-Platonist, neo-Marxist or post-modernism or meta whatever. It's like, what's the new base? What's the base? Like simple ideas in a way. And I think we just are sometimes too much in our head, and in a way the best ideas are the simplest one, but just you need to understand how important they actually are. Like yesterday, I was talking to that little sense-making efforts on how to heal people, and I was like, I'm so frustrated because like, let's say I found the recipe to heal people, but no one wants to hear it because it's actually so simple that people don't believe it's true, And my point is this: it's like psychology doesn't work because it works on the conscious mind, and people all judge all those things, and it's not efficient. Now, hypnotherapy or hypnose, like you actually just talk to the subconscious mind. And most people are fucked up because their parents were fucked up, and their parents were fucked up as well, and their parents were fucked up as well. So no one ever got some really healthy, let's say, fatherly, motherly energy. Everyone is disconnected from, let's say, the divine. But in a way, people don't love themselves. People don't love themselves. They're ashamed of who they are. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not enough. If you reinject a subconscious belief with, you're fine just the way you are, you love yourself because why not? You could, it's just a belief. That's it. Huh? It's like a new sense of belief, and like what are the key ideas that you unlock in the subconscious mind, and people flourish naturally, right? There's very few keys, but the base is like, love yourself, you're worthy of love. You're worthy of attention, you radiate love and respect, in return you get love, respect, poof, you fix people, whoever they are. I try to tell people this, but no one wants to listen. Because people think, oh no, first hypnosis, it's not a real thing, it doesn't work. It can't be that simple. I'm telling you guys, open your mind. It's that simple. Like people just lack of love, that's all they need. And after this, and breaking the shadow, it's super ridiculously easy if you know how to do it. And it can be done fast, and I've done it again and again and again.
Come on, Elena. Your turn. Come on, Elena, say what you think.
Well, okay, so how I'm seeing all this is, I do not think that humans are computers or robots. I don't think it's that easy. I think human beings are really complicated. And, you know, you can think of it theoretically as creating this ideal society. I get that, but I think that's a theory. And I think when you deal with the human condition, it gets really complicated. And you can see people who are really enlightened, you know, or even institutions that are based on really enlightened things, but people are flawed, you know, and I don't know whether you can actually ever get to a point where, you know, you can, you know, become a perfect human being and be enlightened all the time. I don't know whether that's, I don't think that is attainable. I think you can strive for that. You can strive for that. And there's so much we can do. And at the same time, realizing that as human beings, there's so much going on that we cannot control. And so that's where I kind of, you know, if you're thinking if there's a pessimist in this group or, you know, someone who's, I mean, I'm not as, you know, optimistic that boom, you know, you find something, blah, 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 everybody can just change overnight. I don't really think that's possible. I think we can strive for it. Things feel right, but you know, we are human and we are flawed. I mean, look how hard it is to deal with ourselves all the time. You can be enlightened for moments, but to be enlightened all the time, 100%, I don't know anybody who's enlightened 100%. So Ed, I'm just, as you asked me, I am saying this is what's on my mind right
Thank
now.
you. I wanted to hear that.
Okay.
Did I annoyed you, Ed, because I spoke too much?
No, did I annoy you because I interrupted you? I just felt that I hadn't heard from Helena for a long time. That was all.
Okay.
And it's a kind of prejudice that's in a bit in my head. I think I apply it to everybody equally, but I've also hung out with people, you know, feminists and so on. So I always feel that like you got to give a bit of encouragement to the whatever they used to call them, the fair sex. You've got to give them a bit of encouragement because otherwise all the mansplaining gets a bit heavy.
But how about what I said? You know, what do you think?
I don't know. I don't know whether you'll. I kind of agree with what Helena said, but that is not. You can strive for it. Yeah, you
wait,
can
okay.
feed.
Is it impossible that, let's say, in a hypothetical future, we find a good technique to heal people, let's say in 2 hours, heal all their traumas? Impossible, or is it possible?
Of course, it's possible. Nothing's impossible. But
so will you consider that perhaps maybe I already figured it out?
Yeah.
Is it possible or not?
You should try and figure it out.
I did figure it out. I already know.
No, but you didn't because nobody listened to you. Therefore,
so that's my point. It's like people don't listen to me. So what should I do? Let's say hypothetically, if someone gives me 2 hours of their time and believe that they can change, then I can help them.
Okay, I would say show by example. That's the way. If you show by example, then people will gravitate to you.
Okay.
And they'll see it happen. They'll see it in real life. Because one thing is theory, and the other is actually seeing it in somebody 100% of the time. If you do that and you're like that 100% of the time, you will get people right behind you. That's what
that's a great insight. Thank you. Yeah, you're right. Maybe I should just do that. Record it, and then there's no ambiguity, and that's fantastic. Thanks. Okay.
I don't think people will necessarily. I think I'm not saying that I'm enlightened, but it's quite possible that I am totally enlightened and no one can see it. That's quite possible.
What does it mean to be enlightened?
Yeah, I mean, whatever it means, what I just said is true, whatever it means to be enlightened. Even if it means nothing, what I just said is just true. People aren't going to see what's going on in another person. They'll see a lot. We'll look on our screen and see the other 4 people in the room, and we will see a lot about each person. And then when they speak, we'll see even more. But that doesn't mean that we got anywhere near seeing that person as they really are. That's deep. That's miles away.
So,
I
Matt,
think it's energy too. Energy. It's not what people say, more what people do, but it's also the energy that you're feeling. But that also getting from what you're saying is, everybody's a mirror of everybody else. We're seeing, ourselves in the other person. So, I could really connect with somebody and go, oh my gosh, that person's really enlightened, or I really could connect. Someone said, doesn't do anything for me. Right. And it's the same person, but I see your point, Ed, too, that, we are mirrors of each other. Or we can't get out of our own eyes or our own ways of looking at things as well. That's another issue.
Hmm.
Matt,
go ahead.
when you talked about the shame of like never feeling enough, and that reminds me of Brene Brown. Have you heard of her? Or yeah, she has really good work. So I kind of missed though this technique you were talking about. I didn't really pick up on that. Is there somewhere I could like read up on it, or yeah.
Well, I plan to do some let's say presentation to present my work. Really, yeah. I think I will do this.
Maxwell and everyone. I think you're onto something. And when people are onto something, sometimes it's the last thing that other people want to hear about. It's like, no, it can't be that easy. It won't change us from the things we are to the things we want to permanently be. And I get your frustration when there's someone not listening. It's like, it's frustrating when you feel like you have something that's really good. And I would say, well, sometimes you just need to recraft the message, make access by having a exercise. It's kind of like, because humans are developable. And yes, we want to see this future possibility of enlightenment, but it needs to be experienced now, not in the future. And unfortunately, the future doesn't come. So that's one of those things I feel like I can say, and like people will get me in the rebel wisdom kind of listening. There's a tendency for human beings to like turn each other into things, and I think that's kind of one of the things that needs to be exposed for what it is. Hopefully consilience can get that, like when we regard each other as things, then we miss it all. We forget the love that we are. And the only enlightenment that I can keep alive for myself as being a source of love versus a receiver. Receiving, I get it all the time, but it's really just being a source of love. And if I get like I was this morning, running all over the house trying to get my pills together, I apologize. It may not seem like I'm coming from love, but that was self-love. I have to take care of myself too. Myself is a person.
Oh, I think you radiate love, Clay. I mean, you do, huh?
Merci.
You do.
That's my work or my life now. You know,
Mm.
I had to learn it though, because love was not enough before.
Oh, honestly, I'm gonna speak honestly, Clay, but I'm so happy when you're in a group because it's always better when
It's
you're.
always better.
It's
Oh,
like your energy is always. I don't know. It's like chilled and like you try to get people up. You know, like people can be caught in their own bullshit and up their own arse, and you always find a way to use simple words to just not in a patronizing way, which I can be sometimes, but in a cool way, you know. So I really admire you for this. You know, I think I told you before, but, you know.
yeah. Well, you've mentioned it, and I have now something new to put on my new business cards. It's like I specialize in coaching people who are up their own asses. But I don't really want to coach people. You know, I think it's very easy because the species we've evolved into is, you know, like Helena says, we're complicated now, and it's very difficult to tear away all of the, you know, meaning and everything that's in the way of being who, you know, like not even who we are, but basically, you know, the source of who we are is X. What is X? For me, it's like, oh, if I get back to being, you know, the source of love, things then are blanket possible. Yeah, gotta take your pills first. Because we have a lot of learning to undo, I think. All learned things that aren't helpful, aren't true. If they're true, it's like, well, we need a different truth, maybe. That's complication, that's learning. But I think what you might be pointing to is that the transformation is available in an instant. And you have access to that. And then when we rehone your message, it'll seem like you're speaking from, you know, a place of calm, and the day will come. The day is now. The day will come. The day is now.
Well, my teacher is whoever turns up on the Zoom chat.
Mine too.
I was thinking about the people that you're going to coach, Clay. Rather than saying people are up their own asses, you need a word for it, like anal selves or something like that.
Where I come from. How do I know? Everything must be perfect. Yeah. Well, I like that. Where do I get my news? In these rooms. You know, there's no big broadcasting that can tell me now. Your truth can be my truth. I'll listen. But it feels like it's going both ways in this venue, in this kind of, you know, like when I come to the idea garden, I don't know what's planted there. Consilience project. Wow. Someone thought of that and they are doing something. Like that's a bonus that they're doing something. That's pushing it in the direction like the smartphone. You know, what if we can look at news and trust it because it's been, you know, consciously presented in such a way that it is only reporting the truth as is knowable by our species.
Yeah, that'd be a really interesting place to get to, where you could basically just trust whatever you read, or at least be in a position to know how to evaluate it yourself, or have nowhere to go to get a rigorous evaluation of whatever you come across. That'd be a really cool place to get to culturally. for sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's quite a lot of stuff on the news that I can trust. It doesn't mean to say that I know it's not fake, but so in the UK at the moment, they're reporting that there's not enough lorry drivers and there are empty shelves in supermarkets. Now, I haven't actually, I've been to a supermarket today and I got what I wanted. I didn't see a lot of empty shelves. So maybe that news is local. I don't think it's likely that someone's just making it up. But even if they were, it wouldn't matter. I still need to have that bit of news just to stay in tune with the with what may be going on around me. And then you get other things where there are clearly two opposite stories. Like there's some chemical bomb in Syria, and there's one lot of people saying, oh, that was the Russians or Assad, and another lot of people saying, no, that was actually these white helmet people who made it up. And when you look at that kind of, well, at least when I looked into that, I decided, oh, there's no way I can tell which of these stories are true. And I looked quite deeply just using the internet, and there was no way that I could actually judge. So I just said, okay, I don't know who did it. And so it really, it's not such a big problem dealing with the news. You've just got to notice when there's a contradiction between one set of information and another set of information. If there's a contradiction between the two, you've got to remain, suspend your judgment for the meanwhile. But there is something false there, somewhere, there's something false. But that's as much as we can ever work out, I think.
Right. Well, because it can't be all of those reports. Yeah. But, so you're a person who can distinguish that's not possible. It can't be the white helmeted ones and it can't be all of that. And I think who will need to, with compassion help along are the ones that will just say, I know it's the Russians because the Russians are that way, and it's like they have a particular way of seeing. Yeah. And that's,
they may even just say, I think it's probably the Russians because that's the impression I've got of the Russians.
Yeah.
And that's much more reasonable thing than saying that they know it. But they, I literally don't know.
But it's reasonable kind of based on the past, but the people who are prone to say things just to bend the truth in their direction, the white helmet, whatever that is, right? It's like, we'll just say it's the Russians, and then everyone who hates the Russians will agree with us, and then we'll have our people. And we have that in the United States right now. We have it very strongly. Someone's just kind of saying what they want to say and seeing what result they'll get.
Well, the other thing I'm also thinking of is that, where are we getting our news from? And, even Google can censor and there's so much power in these search engines that, are we really getting everything, or are things censored and not, the tremendous amount of power that these search engines have as well. And we don't know what's filtered and what's not. And then there's also news that is not said. That's also kind of a lie in the sense that it's not reported. So you're getting just one side of an issue, could be all facts, but not also showing another thing, that's going on at the same time. So you're not getting the reality as well.
Yeah, is my intellectual comeback. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what about that?
I think
Conciliatory
sometimes-
project. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think sometimes we think by watching the news, we're gonna have a better perspective on the world. When I think maybe the opposite is true. Because if you go outside to your neighborhood, nothing much happens actually. In fact, most of the time, very little happens. But the news is picking up on the very specific accident that happens. And also they're designed to hook you up, emotionally speaking. So they're designed to find an angle to trigger you emotionally. So because you get constantly triggered, it's like, in a way, your experience, your overall experience is defined by the media you consume, where what you see, what you hear, all of it, matters. But if a big chunk of what you hear is danger, 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 big danger, watch out, then people are stressed, people are nervous, and in a way they distort their perspective on reality. Because actually, it's all belief. It's all make-believe in people's mind and who said what, because everyone knows that, let's say some guy you hate, but if you go have a pint with that guy in a good context, maybe you can be friends, like the Heineken commercial or something. And so no one has really that accurate perspective upon things, because all you see is a tiny segment that's very well curated, but it's curated to grab your attention. Because if it doesn't grab your attention, then the journalist is going to lose some, shares of attention. It's going to lose some money, and so it's a competition for your mental space. That's what Facebook is about. It's about how I can hook you into the algorithm is constantly trying to find the emotional hook so you can get addicted to it, because they sell ads, they're in the economy of attention. So in a way, sometimes getting out of it can first flush all your nervous system that's constantly under pressure, because we feel the fight or flight response is always activated with those things like potential threat. And so fear is always parasiting everything else in your mind, even love and all. If you're in potential danger, you're going to pay attention. For sure. So in a way, it's like, how do you get people out of this loop and see the world in all its flavors? Because there's not all bad things happen. There's plenty of good things, but it's like, what do you see? What do you look? What do you pay attention to? And is the good things as attractive? Are you gonna pay as much attention as bad thing? Probably not, because it's a bit further along, the hierarchy chain, and someone who's gonna trigger your fear versus someone who's gonna trigger what you love. The one who trigger your fear is gonna win. Hitler understood that. That's why he won. And so how do we get behind this? How do we wisen up? Or how do we make sure that people are media literate enough to understand that phenomenon and go on a diet? People, it's already difficult for them to go on a diet Coke or eat healthy. So imagine a healthy way to consume information is also difficult. In a way, we need processes to get us out of our own addictive behavior, and it's difficult.
Max, I think you make a really good point, and then and then it goes back to how we started this discussion about what's good that's happening and what's bad. And we tend to, since we're inundated with fear and all the bad things that are happening, because that's what sells, as you're saying, I think we have a distorted view of reality because we are just focusing on that. And I think it's a really good thing to think about, that, and thanks for bringing that up, that we're just aware that we're kind of, you know, skewing everything towards what's not working. That's not to say that we're living in paradise at all either, but that we tend to, news tends to, you know, just show the negative and exploits us in that sense.
But if we didn't have if people didn't have the news, they would probably not know that there's stuff going on in Yemen and Burma and things and China, and so they'd probably find something to get paranoid about closer to home, you know. And what I do whenever I go to the shop, which isn't every day, they have all the daily newspapers on a rack. I look at all the headlines. For one thing, there's an occasional day, and today was one of them, when all the newspapers have the same item on the front page, but that's rare. That's a rare thing. Usually the newspapers have different angles and different slants, and that gives, I never buy the newspaper, and I don't watch the television either. But I get my news mostly from Facebook and YouTube. But yeah, but that looking at the newspapers, it's a good example of very quickly I can get a multi-perspective. It's still pretty narrow because they're all on one thing, but at the same time I am getting a multi-perspective of 7 or 8 different angles, and that reminds me, and it only takes about 20 seconds. So that gives me a lot of understanding with very little cost.
So can I give you an anecdote on this? So I was hired as part of the innovation lab for Timing UK. So they have a Time Magazine, Marie Claire, New Musical Express. So, and I did something successful for Look magazine that made more money than the magazine itself. And then I pitched an idea to them, the hierarchy. It was called Flip Side. And it was like, okay, you can hear the side of the Palestinian and you can hear the side of the Israelis, you know what, the media. And then people comment on the two sides, you know. And you were like, that's interesting, which is basically a way of saying, never, ever, ever, but, you know, like he was so far behind their way of thinking, you know, like the traditional media, because they think they know the truth. That's how they think. It's like, I'm going to tell you, we are the elves, you know, we know everything, we're going to serve them. That's how they think. Huh? But I think indeed the future is trusting people's intelligence and say, okay, this is just one perspective, this is one perspective, this is one perspective, but expose them as quickly as possible, you know, cut the crap, cut the noise, and then what's the discussion? What do people, because the best way you can enrich your own, say, map of understanding of reality is through considering other people's perspective, and in particular, people that you've never considered their perspective before. But in order for them to do that, they have to be willing to do so. And that's the most difficult, I found, is to get people to be willing to consider someone else's perspective, because then their own perspective will be challenged. And then that means that potentially what they thought was true for a long, long, long time, maybe was misguided, you know? And I think potentially, you know, to relate back to what I said earlier, and you know, I'm sorry if I will offend someone by saying this, but I have to express, you know, what I believe. But I believe what I say is challenging a lot of people's belief. And let's say you're a certain age and you're being led to believe that healing is a really hard process. And what if I tell you that actually it's not? Then maybe there is the dynamic of potential, you know, jealousy, because it's like, who's that guy? Why haven't you know, I figured it out if it was that simple? Or it's like, I wish then I wish I had access to it, you know? And a lot of, you know, what we say that we think is logic is actually rationalization over our fears and insecurities. It's actually the emotional brain is in power, and the logic is just rationalization. So maybe it's one of those key of understanding of reality that unless people possess, they're always gonna be kind of misguided, unless like they really have a commitment, emotional commitments toward the higher truth, and be open to the realm of possibilities, because many things are possible, like we have to be willing to consider like that we don't know as much as we think that we do, be humble, and that maybe some things are true, maybe they're not, who knows, but as soon as we shut down and say, no, that's not possible, skeptical mind, like we narrow down our vision and we don't grow from that. And so I think it's a pity. I think when someone makes, extraordinary claim, maybe it's good to be curious and say, oh, okay, that's interesting. I would like to know more possibly, because if that could possibly be true, wouldn't that be wonderful? And what leads you to believe that? I always try to be curious when people make big claims, because it's like, okay, what leads you to think that? What kind of arguments do you have? But unless you're willing to listen to people's argumentation, unless if you're not willing, you're never gonna go up and expand your perspective. In the pyramid of perspective, you're never gonna increase your vision on reality, and that's a pity. Maybe not everyone wants to do it, because some people have some triggers, emotional knots that stops. They don't want to see. It's like a horse. We put them blinkers, because otherwise they will be afraid, to see certain things. So some people are afraid to hear certain things, and in particular, some people really don't want to hear that maybe they have wasted a lot of time in a career. Like, let's say if I were to say to Jordan Peterson today that psychology doesn't work. No, it's not. And actually, there are studies that prove it. Hypnotherapy is so much better, but most people really are not aware of it. It's like 10 times better. Wouldn't that be upsetting to him? Wouldn't that be upsetting to some people who try to heal a great deal of their life, that now you tell them, well, actually, you can do it. If only you knew maybe 20, 50 years earlier, your life would have been so much better. And unfortunately, you didn't have access to the knowledge at the time. Neither did I know, nobody. But now, by combining all the knowledge that we have, new breakthrough open, and sometimes they're exponential. Innovation sometimes is exponential. Sometimes it's 1x, 2x, sometimes it's 10x, sometimes it's 100x. It's like that. And so, I'm really upset about it, and I'm trying to find a way to reach people, to open people's mind, that they don't be so fucking stubborn the way that they are. And I try to be polite, telling people, please, just fucking open your mind, just be receptive. And sometimes, in a way, open to the light. I think people, stuck in their own shadows, shadow. And in a way, it's like, how do I trap the shadow? And sometimes I think, okay, sometimes ecstasies, okay, I'm gonna bring them up, but sometimes, fuck you, I'm gonna bring the catharsis out of you, get out of your own bullshit, open your mind. Your skeptical brain is the thing that's stopping you from getting better.
Oh, thank you for that. Thank you. I don't really want to coach anybody, but we can make comments, yes? So it seems to me like, if you want people to, hear something different than what they've already heard, then you need to find a way to get them to hear it. Like, that's not their problem. it's actually like, so if you want them to, like, say, I wanted to like convince or get you guys behind this whole idea of like, if you get to the source of your self, you may find that it's love and you don't need any love coming toward you. You can always produce the result of being love, you know? So if I wanted you to follow me there, yes, I would want to come from being love, and I would probably notice when I started going into more of a, you know, like, come on, you assholes, get behind the program. You need to come from love right now. It just gives people something to push against, which is like, don't you tell me that I come from love. That's more, you know. So in a way, I didn't say your name, but it's natural to get frustrated. And it's important, if you do have a strong message that you think might help, to be able to notice like which way you're saying it, which way you're explaining it, has people go like, oh, that's really interesting. Huh, I never thought about that way. This is you know, new information for me. And you know, like, so the way that I used to be, which is, you know, I had my head up my ass about everything had to be perfect, and like I could see how that was, and I will tell you, it's a long time ago, but nobody wanted to hear my voice, let alone my opinion. And I get fired. You know, I was a pretty good advertising artist, but it's like people didn't like having me around after they got to know me. So I started to notice, oh, it's you know, I give everybody something to push on. And I make myself look like a diva, you know. Nobody wants that. So for me, I just like, okay, I'll learn how to adjust myself. And the best thing was when I got that, oh, like that time when I felt the most love was like when me and my brother were kids, and we would like, my father would come home and he'd sit on the couch and we'd sing this little song, who's gonna sit by daddy? Oh, I'm gonna sit by daddy. And we would rush over there and we would try to pile on next to where he's sitting, and it was just so much love. And it's like, oh, that wasn't my father. That was me. I was producing that love, and I can reproduce that love right now. Versus, you have to produce that result. Anyway, thank you for listening.
That's a really interesting thing, Clay, because I think I fall into that trap myself, where I'm trying to like yank people in a direction, or you know, pull them like, come on. But if you can figure out a different approach that draws people in, you know, like that's on me to figure out a different approach.
Yeah, what do you think are the best approach? What would you think are the very best approach?
Well, if that question is for me, I'm saying first, I think, is that when you get someone interested, you want to say something about, like I just shared about how me and my brother used to like say, who's gonna sit by daddy? And that's kind of like a story from my life where love was present. And I think that that connects to something that's more human and less informational. And then to like realize it's like, oh, I got that for myself right now. It opens up something of our humanity, which we have in common. I don't like to say it's a trick, but it gives access where access is missing. And then, you know, like a question could be, you know, have you ever had an experience like that? And like people say the experience, or they'll, whatever question you ask a person is what they're going to try to answer. In that respect, we are like machines. So, and I would say, like, you want to get them to a place where they're naturally willing, instead of like forcing them to be willing, because forcing someone to be willing is basically causing them to not be willing. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, it's just like sometimes I wonder if nudging people is actually sometimes the right approach. I don't know. It's like
Yeah, nudging them from where? From where do you nudge? And that's over here again, right? So I want
I don't know.
you.
So let me tell you a story, okay? So my mom got cancer 2 years ago, and you know, she was like very stressed and whatever. And I came to visit her, you know, to when she wanted to start her chemo and stuff like that. But on the table, you know, she was still drinking Coke, you know, like Diet Coke and all kinds of crap. And I was really upset about it. I was like, okay, you got cancer, you know, breast cancer. You don't know how you're gonna live, how long you're gonna live. You know that this gives you cancer, right? You know that what you eat is all garbage. At the beginning, I was nice. I was like, okay. But she didn't care. So one day I said, okay, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take the pack of Coke and I put it in the rubbish bin. And now you're gonna fucking listen to me, because Benjamin's mother, you know, she got cancer as well. I asked him for all advice and information, and you need to get on a sugar-free diet, you know, maybe this and that. And he wished that his mother was still alive. My mother is still alive. I don't want my mother to fucking die. So you're gonna stop that fucking Coke right now. And it's not a discussion. It's like, you fucking do it. And I don't care what you think, and get out of your fucking bullshit. And I said that, and after she changed. So then that's the day I realized, okay, sometimes you nudge people, it's the right approach. And I'm convinced of it. I'm still trying to figure out what's the best way to do it. But I know.
Maybe that was okay for your mom. And I think it's, you know, when a parent sees their child act like that, you know, it may have been a particular situation. But I think in general, you know, saying, you know, what do you know, having that approach is probably going to get people to not listen and shut down. So, and I think this is what happens in life, is sometimes you get a positive reaction to something that you do, and then you think, oh, that's all I need to do, is I need to treat everybody like that, and then they'll change. But that's just that particular situation with your mom and the particular relationship that you have with your mom. But it could be that, you know, that worked for her. That doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody. And it may produce the opposite effect with somebody else. And that's where I think life is so complicated and people are so complicated, because you can really, like you said, like you really helped your mother and you want to help people. And so you think, oh my gosh, that really worked. So I'm going to try it on somebody else. But it may not have the same effect. And then you get frustrated and go,
yeah,
well,
but
what happened?
it did some other time. Some other time it did. Like in honesty meetups, sometimes it's like I be firm. I say, no bullshit. Don't bullshit me. And that's it. It works. Huh? It's just people are so afraid to be confronted. But if it's done in a way with love, it's like, you know, I know what I'm doing, but you need a bit of that. You know, sometimes I think people need a bit of, you know, fatherly energy. Okay, maybe because I look like a baby, and I'm still trying to figure out how to do it. Huh? But I guarantee you, some of it works. And in a way, Jordan Peterson is exactly doing that. Is exactly, they say, you need to get your shit together, and we need some of that energy. You know, like wake the fuck up. Is the kind of energy Jordan Peterson is what he did, but he does it with love, right? So it fucking works. Or otherwise, people would not listen to him.
I want to ask though, isn't there a difference between Jordan Peterson and his audience and you and your audience of your mother? And then what is that difference that you can see?
Yeah, I think it's always contextual. It's like based on who you are, the context and everything. Like it's all different, you know. it seems like the things that can come out of my, like, let's say a pretty girl as well, like sometimes people will not consider what she have to say because she's, you know, people will be biased because it's like, who says that? Who says what? And if I say something, like maybe some things like will not resonate because it's me saying it. That's what I think.
So
You know?
got that. That's great. And you saying it to someone else, yes?
Mm.
To your mother? Or just someone that you just met 15 minutes ago?
Yeah, I mean, let's say if I'm being patronizing to people that are older than me, it's fucking annoying.
They don't want to know you.
Yeah, it's fucking annoying.
Yeah, it is.
But
That's the response.
Hmm?
Yeah, that you got. That's not them. That's what you create, right? When you're being the source of the communication that they find annoying.
Yeah, but sometimes I think it's okay. Sometimes I think, okay, it's okay.
It's okay. Yeah.
I want to do it. I want to, and then they're gonna do something in their life. It's gonna trigger something in their mind, and maybe it's gonna upset them for a while, but eventually, maybe they will consider it later on. They will say, "Oh, okay, this annoying French guy, maybe he was fucking right."
They might, but yeah. So I just wanted to like deepen the conversation for context, because with your mother, and that's such a great example. I think that you should like do a workshop on how to save your mother from dying of breast cancer. Get all the sugar out of her diet and say, you're fucking following my program now. Because there's a whole bunch of kids who don't have their mothers anymore because they said, let me fluff your pillow. Are you comfortable? Oh, I'm so sorry. This isn't working. You know, yeah, you stood for your mother like she couldn't stand for herself. But when you do that for another person who doesn't know you, they're just like, who's this asshole?
Yeah, but sometimes
because there's no context. Who are you for them?
So honestly, I will be willing to be treated as an asshole. I'll be fine. If people think I'm an asshole, as long as it gets them to trigger whatever they need to do in order to better their life. Sometimes you need an enemy. It's like, I'm going to show this asshole I'm so much better than him. Great, I done my job.
Lead a workshop for people whose mothers have breast cancer and they want to, because then they'll be like, I am the leader of this workshop. You are here to save your mother. Look, this is how you do it. The thing that cancer eats is sugar. If you feed sugar to cancer, then the cancer will win. You need to get them to stop consuming sugar. Now, how do you do that? I'll tell you after the break. Well, I was just noticing the time because I know we have a starting and a stopping.
I don't know if any of you have seen videos by Richard Grannon.
No.
He's kind of Northern English accent. He does videos. He does stuff in the States quite a lot, talking to people about how to get out of the patterns of abusive relationships and things like that.
Okay, yeah.
He's a great one to watch, you know, for understanding exactly these. I mean, when I say understanding, I don't mean that he will give you all the knowledge you need. What I mean is you'll see some of those things reflected in the way he deals with his audience, and it's very skillful stuff, and I really admired it. So if you, toxic passivity, that's a good YouTube video with Richard Grannon.
I'm looking it up based on your recommendation because I know you're coming from love right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so it's time for last words because, you know, it's our time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's do it. Elena?
Well, I'm just really enjoyed this group and talking, and I just find it, you know, just an amazing positive thing that's happened with our world, that we're so connected like this, and we can have these conversations that are so rare and so meaningful.
Thank you. Justin?
Yeah, I don't have much say, yeah, I look forward to meeting more with you guys and talking about stuff and making the world a better place.
Right. Thank you, Justin. Clay?
All right, final words. You guys, how wonderful. Thanks for putting up with me in the beginning when I was wandering around. I probably, I could have handled that differently, but I didn't. So thank you for allowing that, and then for being with whatever I said after that. It's what I conceal from most people is that I love you from the beginning, and you don't have to do anything for it.
Wow. Thank you, Claire. All right, Ed, you want to add a few things?
Yeah, I'll also say thank you to all of you for the conversation. And yeah, it was just like when Justin said, looking forward to seeing you guys again. Of course, on average in these kind of rooms, you will probably see each of us again if you keep coming, but in a different combination with some other people. So that's really what I love about these things is I accept whoever has been thrown, like throwing dice. I accept, oh, this is what I'm going to learn from today because it's a completely new combination. And thank you, Max, for hosting it.
Pleasure. And thank you for tolerating my ranting. But I love a good rant, I think people should rant more, get their fire out. I think that's what's missing sometimes in people, Don't be afraid to rant once in a while. It feels good. All right. Okay, take care, guys, and see you around.
See you next week.
Bye.
Maybe. Bye.